ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ?
Yes, ma'am. ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಬೇರೆ ಯಾರೋ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. Yeah. Good morning to all of you, and it's my pleasure to be with all my students, and I'm really feeling at home with so many known faces. It is not that unknown faces are not welcomed, and now we are meeting other I mean, like, you are all faculty, but, I consider you as students only because we have been seeing you as students. And today I'm really, really, very happy to be here and talk to you something about gender economics. And gender economics is an evolving area. Like, we have environmental economics and labor economics and agricultural economics and resource economics. So similarly, gender economics is also one of the areas which is emerging and which is actually gaining a lot of popularity. If you see West, in almost all the universities, you have gender studies or a gender economics unit, gender and policy unit, and at the international level also, like for example, UN and World Bank, and any of the international organizations, they are actually promoting gender-based databases and such things. So the recognition that gender is one of the important categories on which you can you have to look at these issues. So he is gaining a lot of popularity, and especially so like now with a lot of interdisciplinary like social economics and gender economics. So these are the emerging areas, and why I have chosen gender economics is I want some of you to contribute to this field with your fresh mind, because you are all starting your research, and this is a cutting edge research area, research that is happening. So I want economists to be sensitized to the gender issues and look at the gender issues from the economics point of view and contribute to the area of gender economics. And there is International Association for Feminist Economics, and also Indian feminist researchers, several of them have contributed to the Association for Feminist Economics. So, and those of you who are interested in gender economics, you can also log into you can Google for International Association for Feminist Economics, and the membership is not, it is free if only to access, but there is also small membership fee. And it gives you access to a lot of data and lot of research material on gender economics. So this apart, today actually I have chosen to talk to you about gender and development and give you some theoretical perspective. So as all of you know, and you are also expected to be contributing to the research apart from your teaching, because teaching and research, my experience is that teaching and research go hand in hand. So those who are good researchers also will become good teachers, because your examples come from your field. Then you will be relating your theory to the practically what is happening around. So in that sense, today I thought that I will sensitize all of you about gender and development. What are the theoretical perspectives and how economists have to look at the gender issues. So this is with this small introduction, I would like to start my lecture about the so today I'm talking about theoretical background of gender and development, and I will also be giving about some empirical evidence of gender and development. And before actually getting into the subject matter of gender and development, I want to dispel some of the misconceptions. See, even in our patriarchal system, even talking about sexuality, masculinity, femininity, and that itself is a kind of ban. People don't even like to talk about masculinity and femininity or sexuality. People are, still, I'm really surprised. Some 3-4 days, some last week or so, it so happened that a highly educated person was reluctant to talk about the masculinity or femininity or sexuality. Even he doesn't want to talk, utter the word of sexuality. But there is nothing like that. So that's why I just want to clarify certain things about what is gender and how it is different from the sexual differences, and why we are talking about, why we are focusing on gender. So once you are clear about these aspects, then it is possible for you to extend your thinking beyond what you are already doing. So gender is basically, gender refers to the socially constructed roles and relationships between men and women. So gender concerns men and women, including conceptions of both femininity and masculinity. See, when we are talking about gender, gender is, it is a social meaning as it is given here. Gender is a social meaning given to biological sexual differences. So biological sexual differences are by nature, they are being born as a male or being born as a female or being born as a homosexual. So these are all, they are by nature. I think some of you, those who study science, you will also be knowing that all of us carry double X chromosome and XY chromosome. So all females carry double X chromosome, 2 chromosomes, and men carry X and Y chromosome. So when mating takes place, when the offspring, the baby may be carrying double X chromosome or XY chromosome, depending on the chance. So then if both are, if it is double X chromosome, female girl baby will be born, and if it is XY chromosome, male man boy will be born. So on which we don't have control. So that is actually biological differences or sexual differences. But gender differences means, so gender is a social construct. See, in a patriarchal society, a boy is expected to be doing certain things, and a boy is banned doing certain things, whereas females are expected to be doing certain things. So females are banned from doing certain things. So this social construct is nothing but gender. So gender is the social meanings given to, so social meanings given to biological sexual differences. It is a social stratifier in the sense that, so when we are analyzing the data, when you are looking at whether the programs are, the benefits are reaching to each and every one, so you will look at whether all income groups are covered or not. You will also look at whether all social groups are covered or not. So you will also look at all regions, both rural and urban, whether they are covered or not. So these kind of differences you will look at. That is what is called stratification. We stratify based on the income, or based on social group, or based on the geographical location. So similarly, gender is also another category of stratification. So then in gender stratification, what you do is you look at whether the benefits are reaching men and women equally or not, or whether women are left out or men are left out. It is not that women are only left out all the time. Certain policies, whether they have any intention or not, they will be negatively affecting one section. That section may be men. So when you are looking at the gendered impact of any particular program or any public policy, you will look at whether it is reaching, whether it is affecting both men and women equally, or whether any particular group is paying more price, or I mean, whether a particular group is negatively affected or not. So in economics, feminist economists use gender as an analytical category. As I told you, when we are analyzing the data, when we are using any, when we are taking up any analysis, so we use class, that is the income group. We also do use race, that is your caste group. And similarly, we also use gender as an analytical category. So why we do this is, ultimate purpose of any analytical exercise is to see if any public policy is eradicating social inequalities or not. Because public policy, the objective of public policies is to reach any particular thing to everybody. So whether it is able to reach or not, we want to look at, if you want to look at, we'll have to look at social groups. We also have to look at the income groups. We also have to look at the gender groups, that is male and female. So first of all, it has to be very clear in your mind that when we are talking about gender, we are talking about both men and women. So gender is a social construct. So because it is a social construct, because society dictates, so that man should be doing this, man should not be doing this, it is possible to change. Biological differences, we have no control over it. When a fellow is born with a double X chromosome as a female, you can't change it into XY. But whereas a girl, what girl can do, what girl cannot do, what you decide, that can be changed. For example, for several years, people were thinking that girls cannot fight, girls can't be recruited in army. And for several ages, people were thinking that girls cannot ride a scooter, girls cannot do the kind of mechanical work. But now girls have proved that they can also do that. So there is no difference. But only difference is that is being created by us. So that is what is actually gender. So gender, when we are talking about gender, we are talking about both men and women. Gender is nothing but it is the social meanings given to biological sexual differences. So then gender is also about, gender is the basis for every basic division of labor. Why we are talking about gender? Why we are talking about the division of labor is because gender is the basis for very basic division of labor within most societies. So in patriarchal societies, man is head of the household and man should be earning money, and women are within the household. They should be taking care of the house and taking care of the family. So when the division of labor, this division between inside work and outside work, that is public domain and private domain, is based on nothing but your gender. So division between, this has led to what is called the division between productive and reproductive activities. So productive activities are those which earn money. So men go out and men go out and earn money. So that is their productive activity. Reproductive activities does not mean that only producing children. Reproductive activities also include taking care of children, caring for the sick, elderly. So all these things are, they are considered as reproductive activities. So why we are talking about gender, why it is important to talk about gender is these responsibilities are very much gendered. So productive duties are given to men and reproductive duties are assigned to women. And because of this, because the reproductive duties are not income earning and productive duties are income earning, what has happened is because resources are in the hands of man, so man was earning money, woman was not earning money. So why we are talking about gender is because gender is the basis for very division of labor. And Amartya Sen says that families are characterized not only by cooperation but also conflict as well. See, when there is this division of labor takes place, and because man is involved in income earning activities or productive activities, man started controlling women because when women's activities are not earning money. So this is the situation, and this has led to what is called unequal distribution of resources. And because female need not go out and earn, female need not be educated. Now things are slightly different. Imagine some 50 years ago. Imagine some 60 years ago. So when women, because this is also basis for this division of labor is also based on your gender, and that has led to unequal distribution of resources. Resources does not mean only land and cash or anything. Resources are productive resources are access to health and access to education, access to income. These are also resources. So when the work is divided like these productive activities and non-reproductive activities, the idea was that because women are engaged in private domain, which doesn't income earn any money, there is no need for girls to get educated. There is no need for girls to get educated, and because of that, they are staying at home. They stayed at home, and there is no need to take care of their health because they are not the breadwinners. So this has led to what is called the gender gap. Gender gap in the sense more men are educated and less women are educated. More men are in highly paid jobs and more women are in less paid vulnerable jobs. So all this division of labor is based on the gendered nature of duties and because of the patriarchal system. So now let us see. Feminist economists have used gender as a category, as I already told you. So, and they have analyzed this in at different levels, micro, meso levels, both to critique orthodox approaches to economics and to construct a new approach. See, feminist economists have used gender as one of the category for analysis. And this analysis has taken place both at the micro level, macro level, meso level, at different levels. I will explain more about it in next few slides. So public policies, Naila Kabir has given this framework. See, public policies, all of you know, as economic students, I don't have to tell you what is meant by public policy. So public policies are extremely important in the development of the country. So Naila Kabir is a faculty in IDS Institute of Development Studies, Sussex. So Naila
Madam,
Kabir,
Madam, kindly make it full screen, ma'am. Go to the slide.
yeah, sorry, and I will do it. Yeah, slideshow. Okay. Yeah, only this slide is a slightly light color. Okay. So Naila Kabir is a feminist economist from Bangladesh, and she is in IDS Sussex. So she has classified the public policies into different categories. One is gender blind policies. So these, because public policies will affect men and women differently. So gender blind policies are policies that ignore socially determined roles, responsibilities, and capabilities of men and women. So these policies don't take into consideration what are the capabilities of men and what are the social responsibilities of men. Without taking into consideration, when policies are made, they are called as gender blind policies. So they need rethinking of the assumptions and practices. Whereas gender sensitive policies are also divided into three kinds of policies. One is gender neutral policies, gender specific policies, and gender redistributive policies. So gender neutral policies is, here policies intended to leave existing distribution of resources and responsibilities unchanged. So in gender neutral policies, they won't change the existing policies, the existing what is called resource distribution. They would maintain. So these policies are not going to affect any resource distribution. They would only be maintaining it. So such policies are gender neutral policies, and gender specific policies are there.
Face ಕಾಣ್ಲೇಬೇಕು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಾಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ.
Gender specific policies.
Excuse me, Shivasharanappa sir, mute your audio.
So gender specific policies are policies intended to meet targeted needs of men and women. So gender specific policies means within the existing policy only. So specific needs of men and women, because men's needs are different from women's needs. So these policies, they specifically meet the needs of men and women. Those are gender specific policies. Whereas gender redistributive policies are there. Some of the policies are gender redistributive policies. So these policies, they intend to transform the existing distribution. So for example, gender redistributive policies, one example of such policies is government of India and as well as Karnataka also, they have given equal opportunity for girls to get the family share. In the sense, the family property, girls also should be given equal share along with the boys. So that was the recent or some time ago in Karnataka, it has been implemented. So girls also have to get the share in the parental property. So that means it is a redistributive. Earlier it was not there. Earlier only boys were getting the property of the parents as a heredity. Only they were getting the part of their father's parents' property. So whereas this new law, which has given opportunity for girls also to get some part of their ancestral property, is a gender redistributive policy. So because of this policy, girls also have got access to resources, which was not there, which has changed the redistribution, which has influenced the distribution. So these are three kinds of, why I am talking about this is, you are all economic students and you also have lot of future and a lot of research should come forward from you. And this is one framework which you can use to look at when you are analyzing the existing policies. It could be new economic policy, it could be employment policy, it could be any policy Government of India is introducing. You can look at, use this framework and write articles or discuss about whether these particular policies are, whether they are gender neutral or gender specific or gender blind or gender redistributive. So then 1 minute I will spend on what is development, because I don't have to talk to you what is development, because you all know as economic students development. But I particularly appreciate the Sen's definition of development. Development can be seen as a process of expanding real freedoms. This is very, very important when we are talking about feminist economics or gender economics. Gender economics also people use, and feminist economics also people use. So development can be seen as a process of expanding real freedoms that people enjoy. Focusing on human freedoms contrast with the narrow views of development, such as identifying development with the growth of gross national product, or with the rise in the personal income, or with industrialization, or with technological advances, or with social modernization. So Sen clearly brought out to the forefront the importance of looking at the freedoms. People should have freedom to do what they want to do. In Sen's language, the development should be able to give freedom to people to do what they want to do, to be what they want to be. There should be sufficient freedom for them to enjoy the life. So any development that gives freedom to people to do what they want to do, and to do what they enjoy, and to be what they want to be. So that is actually the development which gives freedoms to people. And development is not just the growth in national income and growth in personal income. Some people argue that personal income and GDP increases, it will get distributed. We also have that what is called trickle down effect. But trickle down effect does not happen. So what Sen says is that development should be able to give freedom. So in Sen's development framework, freedoms is extremely important. So here I just want to tell you, freedom is not the freedom to enjoy high-end car or low-end car. Freedom is to get educated, not to get educated. Freedom is to live without any health issues, living with health issues. Freedom is to eat all 3 times in a day and not eating, going to bed with hunger. So these are the choices. For poor people, they don't have freedom to get educated, whatever education they want, because of want of money, lack of money. And this freedom to live without disease. So if you don't have money, you don't have the alternative of living without pain. If you have money, you can get yourself cured. And if you have access to health, you will live without any pain. So the freedoms are, here the freedoms are basic minimum freedoms. Basic freedoms to do what you want to do, to get educated, to live without any issues, to live without any disease. So these are the things that Sen's development model says. So basically what Sen says is that people should have freedom to enjoy whatever they are doing and to lead the kind of life that they want to lead. This freedom is extremely important when we are talking about gender issues, because how many women have freedom to do what they want to do and to be what they want to be. Even now, even this day, I can see several of the girls who are highly educated are not able to exercise their freedom because of the patriarchal system, because of the gender roles. So why gender is a development issue? Because time is just already running, already 12:20. So why gender is a development issue? Why gender is a development issue is, development aims to change people's lives individually and collectively. So establishes social structures or social institutions. So they have an impact on the individuals. So family, the basic unit of society, and the traditional authority and the institutions of modern governance, that is panchayat, gram panchayat, jilla panchayat and all, and economic structures, that is labor organizations, employment pattern. So these are the institutions which will have an impact on our behavior and on the process of development. But all these things are gendered. In all these cases, you will find that there is gender differences. See, for example, work. If you take work is productive and reproductive work. It is clearly defined between men and women. And access to and use of social services. Here also men have better access and women have less access. And access to and use of power. So here also men have better access, whereas women have less access. So livelihoods, access to different resources, land. So here also you have gender differences between men and women. So because of all these differences in access to power, access to resources, and differences in work. So all these contribute to economic development, but all these are being gendered. All these have the gender differences. So that is why we have to look at gender as a development issue. Me, actually, I started working on gender because I considered this as a development issue. So let us come to our mainstream economics. So mainstream economics, what we studied is that in mainstream economics, efficiency requires right person, right job, and right. So basic economic efficiency decisions are what to produce, how to produce, how much to produce, and to improve the efficiency, you need right person in right job and producing right goods and services. But what do you mean by right? What is right? So how to achieve this? How to achieve this right person and right product and right good? So we know that in traditional economics and perfectly competitive market. So why all our neoliberal policies are focusing on market is because markets are supposed to be the best mechanism for efficient allocation of resources. So what our mainstream economics said is that competitive product and labor markets. So these are competition in the market, competition both in the factor market and product market. In both the cases, competition leads to efficient allocation of resources. So that is why everything will be produced efficient. This is basic economics argument. So, but how is this achieved? How can we achieve this? This is price. Through prices. Signals are, prices provide the signals. So prices provide the right signals to, for the producers to produce, consumers consume. So this kind of, the prices will give the signals also for the relative scarcity. So, you know, you have been teaching microeconomics. Most of you must be teaching certainly microeconomics. You know that, you know, price gives signals, and price, perfectly competitive price is the market clearing price, and which is acceptable to the producer as well as the consumer. So what Adam Smith said is in his inquiry into the nature and cause of health of nations. So it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their self-interest. So we address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-interest. So what Adam Smith says is it is the enlightened self-interest. Yes, individuals have self-interest, but because of that interest, they will be producing goods and services. And again, all that virtuous cycle of people getting income and spending expenditure and all that virtuous cycle takes place. So what I am trying to tell is markets are the, what we were told is that perfectly competitive market is the best mechanism for efficient allocation of resources, and prices are the best signals. So, but in this argument, what is important is agents be able to follow their self-interest, but in the pursuit of self-interest must be constrained by competition. So, what are the conditions which will allow the pursuit of self-interest? See, what our traditional economics says is that perfectly competitive market. But what conditions ensure perfectly competitive market? That also you know. So it is all agents must have equal access to information, you know about it, and all agents must have freedom to act. Unless until you have freedom to see, for example, from consumer point of view, I can tell when prices decrease, okay, so demand for product increases. When prices decrease, with the same 10 rupees, earlier you were buying two units. Now prices has come down. With the same 10 rupees, you can buy 4 units. So earlier you were demanding only 2 units. Now because price has come down, you can demand 4 units. That means, you know, your demand has increased by 2 more units. This is a basic simple example of how demand theory works. So when prices decrease, you will buy more and demand for that particular product increases. But that happens only when you have freedom to act. If you are free to buy, if you are allowed to buy that product more, you can buy more, you can demand more. But if you don't have freedom, you can't decide. You can't decide to increase your consumption. So you can't decide to increase your demand. So if you can't increase, if there is no freedom for you to do that, obviously demand theory does not work. So that is what I am trying to tell. Agent must face the, I mean, what are the conditions is information should be there, and freedom to act should be there, and there should be common prices. So all this, when all these things are in place, markets work and they will be producing right product and right time. But what happens is That is one argument. The other argument is that we entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is also, as economists talk about the importance of entrepreneurship. Even now, as our government is also talking about promoting entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurs are very, very important for the development, and entrepreneurship is a vital ingredient for economic growth, but its development requires the maximum substantive freedom and the access to resources. Entrepreneurship also doesn't, you can't just simply become an entrepreneur. So to become an entrepreneur, you need freedom and you need access to resources. So these two arguments, first argument is argument in favor of open market, competitive market, and second argument is about the entrepreneurship. So these two arguments clearly talk about the freedom and access to resources. But see, given that framework, now we will see how that framework, how the development framework, how gender goes. So if, as I told you that in a perfectly competitive market, we need all those conditions. But if agents do not have access to the same resources, if everybody do not have the same access to resources, or if everybody cannot take decision by themselves, see, markets do not work. So we know for sure that access to resources is gendered. In the sense, men and women do not have equal access to resources. See, you don't think of only all this some 35, 40 of you people sitting here and listening to me. World is not only this 35 to 40 people. World is much beyond that. World is not only those living in Mysore. World is also those we are living in villages. And in general, if you take your normal curve, majority of the cases are within the bell. So that is majority of the cases, access to resources is different for men and women. Women have less access to resources, and also ability to respond to incentives. Ability to respond to incentives is also gendered, in the sense ability to respond to incentives is different for men and women. So men can take, in a patriarchal society, men take quick decisions and they have freedom to decide, whereas women have less freedom to decide. And the effective prices faced by men and women are gendered. So I will talk about what is the effective price. We'll have to bring about the transaction cost when we are talking about the effective prices. So here all these 3-4 slides, I'll just summarize. What I was trying to tell is that in our traditional economics, perfectly competitive market is a mechanism which ensures efficient allocation of resources. And also entrepreneurship is very crucial for economic development. But entrepreneurship or perfectly competitive market, it requires freedom and access. So freedom and access are important to exercise your, to be in the, to get the most out of the perfectly competitive market. But in the case of men and women, access to resources also is differential access to the resources for men and women. And similarly, incentives, ability to respond, ability to take decisions is also not common for both men and women. It is different for men and women. So access to working capital is also differentiated. Control over land, same capital, and men have very less access to resources. So because of this, what happens is the effective prices faced by men and women are different. So what is an effective price? So effective price is, you as an economic student, you must have known about the transaction costs. So transaction costs are involved in accessing any particular service, or you must have heard about the transaction cost. So the incentive price is the marketplace transaction. It's a transaction cost. For example, I'll give one example. So if a female has to go to work, she has to take care of baby or appoint somebody to take care of the baby. But whereas a man has to go to work, he need not incur this expenditure. So that means going to work involves not only the cost of transportation, but also somebody to take care of the children. So that extra expenditure is nothing but it is the transaction cost, and transaction costs are completely gendered in nature. So, and because of this, because of the high transaction costs, because of the gender differences in access to resources, because of gender differences in taking the decisions or possibility of taking decisions, it leads to what is called the inefficient allocation of resources. So the transaction costs based by men and women are different. So that means, because of these differences, there is a systematic efficiency cost due to gender rigidities. So because of these gender differences, and which is again a social construct, so because of that, we are actually losing our, there is economic efficiency we are not able to achieve. We are only suboptimal efficiency is being reached because of these kind of market failures. So this is the economic argument for giving gender for the asking for gender equality, because gender equality, giving equal opportunity to men and women is not charity. There is an economic logic, economic reason for efficient allocation of resources. It is important to give to give equal opportunity to men and women. So this is what the main argument of this particular lecture. So new institutional economics also talks about the gender. So new institutional economics argues that different levels of transaction costs in different societies have an enormous influence on the pattern and rate of economic growth. So when you look at the economic issues in an institutional framework, so institutional framework means family is an institution, property rights as an institution, employment laws, institution, rules, they are all institutions. So you have to look at the economic behavior of the individuals in terms of these institutions. When you look at these in these institutions, certainly you will be able to identify the gender gap in all these kind of institutions. So effective institutions are important to reduce the transaction costs. So, so the existence of, this is the summary of this. The existence of widespread gender inequality allows the inference of a suboptimal allocation. When there is no gender equity, gender equality is not achieved, our resources will be suboptimally allocated. So resource allocation will not be at the optimum level and it will lead to inefficiency. So growth will be lower, otherwise welfare would be lower than otherwise could be. Because of gender inequalities, growth will be less than what it would have been achieved, and welfare also would have been at the suboptimal level. So this is the crux of the logic or the argument that women should be given equal opportunities. And because if women are not given equal opportunities, if there is no gender equality, the resources will not be, the resource allocation will not be optimum level. When resource allocation is not at the optimum level, it lead to inefficiency in the resource use. And then gender economics, actually economists have to, economic and also gender relation is not very old. Even after environmental economics, only these issues have come about. So now people are looking at gender economics, but it is recent times, 50s only, it started gaining more importance. So evaluation of gender in macroeconomics. So it began to recognize that economic development generally affect men and women. See, actually 1970s, I will talk about how it has, how people started looking at gender from the economics perspective. So 70s, it began to be recognized that economic development affect men and women differently. Bostrup has published a book on the economic development. So Bostrup has clearly brought out in her book that, all the development programs which are sidelining women. So it is important to have women-specific programs. So that has brought out, till then people were thinking that if the economy focuses on economic development, that is sufficient. It will take care of, it will reach men and women equally. But Bostrup's study has clearly brought out that it is not so. So it was recognized that the direction of causation between macroeconomic gender relations could be both ways. So people were started looking at gender relations and macroeconomy. So macroeconomic policies also influence gender relations, and gender relations also influence macroeconomic policies. That is a kind of two-way people have observed. And macroeconomic modeling also people have introduced gender issues in macroeconomic modeling. So first method is disaggregation by gender. There are certain models which are developed. So here the objective is to highlight the implications of the difference in behavior between two genders, and the people have used some regression models, and where gender is also used as one of the explanatory variables. So Collier's model of labor reallocation during structural adjustment. So during structural adjustment, actually even structural adjustment program also, many people thought that structural adjustment will have equal effect on men and women. But later only people realized that structural adjustment program is gender biased, and it has increased the opportunities for men, whereas it is not so for women. So then gender discrimination in labor market. So we know that classical economics, we know that labor market demand is determined by demand for labor. Demand for labor is determined by marginal productivity of labor, and we also assume that labor is homogeneous. But Keynes has introduced the concept of non-competing groups. So because even among women also, even though they are highly educated, they are not competing among themselves because of the social responsibilities. So household as a unit of consumption is in classical theories, we assumed that household is a single unit of decision making. So when we are talking about consumer means we talk about consumer. We don't talk about different consumers in the same household. In the same household, you have men as consumer, you have women as consumers. So we have not looked at the classical economics does not look at the differences in it considers family as a unit and assumed as a single decision making unit, but it is a collective of differential power relations. So when you look at the family, it is not that demand for one particular product doesn't come from the entire family. Family, each one has different demand for different products. So individual interest is identified with household interest in the classical labor market. But whereas this is men and women are not equal participants in the labor market. So modeling the household as a husband-wife team does not capture the non-nuclear setup. See, we assume that decision to participate in the labor market means nothing but going to work and not working. So it is a decision, it has economic implications. See, for example, if you see now the issue is, you find a lot of girls in engineering colleges and many are getting into technical courses, but they are not participating in the labor market. They are not coming into the public domain. Why? Because the decision is not their decision. Decision is by the family, but we don't have models. We don't have models about how to incorporate this in the labor market. So it is still a virgin area for many of you to do research in this area. So traditional demand function for labor. So employment is individual employment function is literacy, skills, income. These are the factors which influence employment, but it is gendered. For example, social status, and in positive impact on men and negative impact. See, in low social status groups, more women in rural areas, they go for work, high social status, they don't go, women don't go. So similarly, marital status. Marital status has no influence in the case of men to go to work or not to work. But whereas marital status has an influence on women to go to work or not to go to work. If a female is married, she will, her participation in the labor market depends on several social factors rather than her qualification alone. So our traditional demand function doesn't have these kind of variables. So, and gender and development, there are different approaches. Women in development, and gender and development. I'll explain in this thing. So, theorizing gender and development. So, theoretical frameworks, because you are all budding researchers, and you also, I expect you to do a lot of good research in future. I just put this slide. So this is basically theoretical frameworks. So theoretical frameworks are absolutely important when you are doing any research. So why theoretical frameworks are important is, each theoretical framework is based on certain assumptions, and each theoretical framework will give different solutions. I am sure that you are going to appreciate this when you are coming to the next slide. So feminist frameworks, each feminist framework is dependent on different assumptions and also the different outcomes. So historically, early development initiatives, the economists did not really bother much. They largely ignored women, and nobody really bothered about whether the development programs are affecting men and women equally or not. So this issue was whether to follow this route or that route. It is only industrialization, mainly modernization, produce more, industrialize more. So that was the thinking in 1930s. But later on, during the 40s and 50s, development planners designed projects for modernizing the colonies. When we also got our independence, and similarly several countries got independence, and they started modernizing their economies. So the more focus is only on what is called the modernization of the colonies. But later on, what happened is the 70s, as I told you, Bostrup's women's role in economic development. She did research on understanding the women's role in economic development, investigated the impact of development projects on third world women. See, when everybody is focusing on develop the country, invest factories, this dam, that dam, and all produce. So only that was modernized, and only that was the focus. When Bostrup has done research, and she told that the fruits of economic development are not reaching everybody. In the fruits of economic development are being only they are gender biased. Only men are able to take the economic opportunities, and whereas women's economic opportunities are not taken care. So that was the main finding. It made a real impact on the thinking. So Bostrup study seriously challenged the argument of trickle down. So she challenged that trickle down does not happen, and trickle down, especially in the case of men and women, it is not happening. So what she told is, so then women started looking at how to integrate women's concerns also. So women in development argument has come about. USAID has established women in development office. People were asking that we have to follow women in development, integrated women in the development programs and policies. So women in development perspective has represents a merging of modernization and liberal feminist theories. So then women with the approach, they want to integrate women into the development, slowly became concerned. Many governments started women in development programs. So women incorporating the women concerns in the development programs. But however, however, they are not radical feminists. They criticized this. So women in development program has been criticized because what they argued is incorporating women's concerns in the programs, given the same patriarchal system. Even the same patriarchal system, even if you do something for women also, it won't reach. So then what they argued is, it should be women and development. So we need to have specific programs, women only projects. So women only projects, particularly taking into consideration women's interests and patriarchal domination. So taking into consideration, we have to evolve the policies and programs. That argument was put up by some of the feminist economists. So that has led to what is called the women and development. So in women and development model, so specific programs are evolved mainly, policies are evolved mainly by taking into consideration the situation of women, requirements of women. But then later in the 80s, what has happened is gender and development perspective has developed. Because in WID perspective, you are looking at women as a separate category. In women and development, you want to make specific programs for women. But whereas gender and development paradigm, what it says is that you can't separate women and men separately, because they all live in a particular society. It is important to develop the what is called taking into consideration the situation or the social norms and this one. So you have to develop what is called the gender awareness. So gender empowerment. So empower people, empower men and women, and gender aware planning. So that has given what is called the gender and development. It's not women, it is gender and development, taking into consideration the requirements of men and women. So within GAD perspective, distinction is drawn. So GAD perspective has clearly looked into what is called the women's interests, that is biological category, and gender interests. So biological category, that is the women's interest. So as a female, you have certain requirements. You get menstruation, you need sanitary pads. So that is the biological requirement. But whereas gendered interest is, you want equal opportunities. So that is the gendered interest. So what GAD says is that GAD clearly brought out the biological requirements and socially constructed gendered requirements. So what GAD looked at is, it wants both men and women to be addressed. For improving the status of women, it is not just to only address women's issues. It is important to look at men and the relationship between men and women. What men are, how men and women are complementing, are competing. So that has to be taken into consideration in the gender and development. So with this perspective, now we have paternity leave and all that has come about, because gender women's issue is not only women's issue. So women's issue is dependent on men's issue, and the relationship between men and women, the kind of society, the patriarchal society. So that has to be addressed, is being given by the gender and development. So that is how in several of the places we have paternity leave, because bringing when taking care of the baby is not the responsibility of only female. Men also should have equal responsibility. That is how paternity leave is now given. And when Virat Kohli has applied for paternity leave, all of you must be knowing that Virat Kohli has applied for paternity leave because Anushka is expecting their first baby. But that became a big news. And everywhere, even editorial, because we are in that status. When Western world, especially Canada and European countries, France, and I know European countries, Norway, Sweden, and many countries, and Canada, these are the countries where there are very, very family-friendly policies. So women can anytime get into the labor market, and there are several family-friendly policies. Now, when our government gives patriarchal leave, that means now we still have got long way to reach their kind of thinking. So Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, so they have come out with a kind of what is called gender institutions and development database. See, what they have done is, as I have been explaining, see, gendered behavior is not anything that came from Upper. It is not that somebody came and told that boys should not be cooking, boys should not be washing. It's not like that. It is all made by us. And again, gender roles are culturally different. In some cultures, men only will be cooking. In some cultures, women only be cooking. These are all culturally based. It is not coming from anywhere. But these institutions play an important role. Even though there is a lot of change. For example, in good olden days, when husband dies, female was not allowed to step out of the house. She should shave her head, should not come out, and she should not attend any function. That was the norms existing. Now that situation has changed. It means gender norms keep changing. But still, these institutions, marriage as an institution, several of these customs and all these things, these institutions will have a very, very important role on the status of women. So, taking into consideration these institutional factors, OECD has developed a database, that is Gender Institutions and Development. This is a very, very important index that they have developed. So, indicators affecting women's economic role is economic development and GDP per capita is influenced economic status of women and their access to resources and social institutions. Based on this model, they have developed the gender and institutional development. So this is OECD has done this, and the OECD has taken into consideration, these are the things. 4 major groups they have taken. In that, one is discrimination in the family and restricted physical integrity. They have taken all these indicators, that is loss on violence against women I'm sharing this presentation. You can go through it leisurely. And the third one is restricted access to productive and financial resources. And fourth one is restricted civil liberties. So all these four categories they have taken into consideration. These are the indicators. What I have given down are the indicators. Taking into consideration, they have developed the indices. So this is social institutions, SIGI, social institutions and gender index, SIGI. So SIGI 19 category I have taken into consideration only South Asian countries, because there is no point in comparing India with Netherlands. There is no point in comparing India with Sweden, Norway, because they are much, much ahead. Before even any of you are born, they started thinking about gender equality. We started talking about now. So so that's why I have not taken into consideration. Those of you interested, you can go through this site. It is there. Here we have all the data. So what it says is among the South Asian countries, India is better. So the SIGI value is 34. Higher the value, higher the restrictions. So social institutions and gender index. So in India, is SIGI value is 34%. And Nepal is next to this is Nepal. And now where actually we have more discrimination, we can check these things. See, earlier side I have shown you four categories, four dimensions they have given. For each dimension they have given indicator. So when you look at these four dimensions, discrimination in the family. Discrimination in the family is highest in Islamic Republic of Iran. And discrimination in the family is compared to the other countries, India, it is less, 46.9%. Whereas restricted physical integrity. So in restricted physical integrity, there are some rules about the abortion laws and such kind of indicators are there. So restricted physical integrity, India is 29, but Nepal still it is less, 13%. Nepal it is still better in terms of restricted physical integrity. Whereas access to productive and financial resources, so in that context also, Islamic Republic is better. We need much more research to understand why it is like this. But access to resources, India is in the 36.9%. And restricted civil liberties. In restricted civil liberties, India is doing very well. Restricted civil liberties 21.2. So this also indicators in some of the indicators like restricted civil liberties, laws on citizenship rights, because we have females also have equal voting right. So that's why we got more mark. Political voice, political representation. Because of these things, we got better number here, 21.2%. So what it shows is that among the South Asian countries, India is better in terms of institution and gender index. And recent shifts, government of India has done several policies and programs. So there is a considerable increase in the participation of women in higher education, and in PhD level, we will see in 2016, Karnataka PhD level, you have male 1245, female still it is less, it is 700. Even the post-graduation, we have more female than male. But when it comes to MPhil, of course, now it is not there. In PhD level, you find still there is gender gap. And labor force participation per 1,000 of 15 plus, as you see. In labor force participation also, you can see female labor force participation is so low. In rural areas also, male out of 1,000, rural areas, it is 813. And females are 358 in rural areas and 205 in urban areas. Gender parity is still long way to achieve. So this is also another state-based labor force participation 2016. Because of time, I'm just skipping all these things, important things. Why less girls are coming into work is because less men are spending less time in the housework. You can see this. This is again OECD Gender Initiative. What is being observed is that in India, men housework, how many hours, how many minutes per day men are engaged in routine housework. You see India, it is the least. And in developed countries, Canada, Sweden and all, men are spending more time in housework supporting the family. So why what has been observed is that more girls are getting educated, but less are coming to work participation. So that is actually one issue that needs more research is needed. So this difficulty in transition. So more and more girls are getting educated, but they are not coming to job. So that is why we have got what is called the ideal girls phenomena. So almost 47 to 72% of the girls are neither in school nor at work. They are regarded as ideal girls. So the empirical research on work-family interface, there is very little research on the role conflict, and much more research is needed to understand some strong predictors of work-family conflict emerge, like lack of clarity and division of domestic responsibilities. So these are some of the reasons why less women are coming into the job. So I think now we have got only 4 minutes to 1 o'clock. And I would stop here, and afternoon also I am going to continue the topic with relating with to sustainable development. If there are any questions, quickly maybe we can answer some of the questions. Please, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, are there some questions?
Madam Prasad.
Yeah.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation, madam. Madam, I am audible?
Yeah, sure.
Madam, what is your opinion about in India? There's a strong or sound gender policies, but their poor implementation in the field of securing them, or some empowering of women or gender related.
Yeah, my argument is like, we have policies, but they are not complementary.
Yes,
we don't have complementary policies. Policies are there here and there. They are not coming together in the sense. For example, education policies, scholarships are given, and companies companies are given money or incentives to employ more girls, and all these things are there. But supporting services are not there. There is no crush to keep their babies, or there is no extra incentive for families with small children. Actually, in Western countries, if a family is with babies below 4 years, till the baby comes to 4 years or 5 years, there are extra incentives, so that they can employ some help to take care of the babies, and they can come to job. And apart from that, basically this is patriarchal society. Even at the high decision making level also, still we have that patriarchal thinking. Now only with all these policies, more and more girls are certainly coming in there, ascertaining this situation probably. But what has been done, this is my standard quotation, what has been done for so many ages of patriarchal system, undoing this takes a lot of time. So what the Western world has achieved kind of thing, it will take many more years. So my next generation, many generations, when girls also are highly sensitized about their capabilities, because my mother never thought that she is capable of doing anything, because her thinking was all the while she was told that you are good for nothing, you don't know anything other than cooking. But at least my generation, I got the confidence, I am also worth something, I am also capable. And my next generation, my children, certainly they see me doing it, so they will certainly have the confidence within them, and they will occupy the places. So it takes a little process. It takes some more process. And I'm sure that your generation boys also will accept better than my generation men. So there will be some exceptions certainly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, some of you studied gender economics. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Pushpa.
Ma'am, do you think giving only 15 days of paternity leave will help women to take care of?
No,
So,
no.
in some of the forum, you people should have to give a strong suggestion to the government recommendations, saying that at least 1.5 months of leave.
Yes. No,
Okay, that
it is
was
not, certainly it is not just 15 days of leave, it doesn't help, but it is a beginning. It's a beginning. And it is also an understanding that taking care of the baby is not the responsibility of only female. Biologically producing the baby is only female responsibility, but bringing up is both men and women can do it. So that attitudinal changes will take place, and now people are realizing how much women contribute in their workplace. So things will change, but certainly 15 days is not sufficient. Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Yeah, Ismail.
a decreasing trend is observed in women employment in rural areas.
Yes.
What is about this?
No, actually there are some lot of research is going on into this. One concept is backward bending supply curve. So backward bending supply curve in the sense earlier times when they were not even able to have food, women were coming to work in field, even if they are paid less also, 5 rupees, 10 rupees also. So now at least food is secured, food security is there because of ration and all, free ration and all is taking place. And also some of them next generation boys earlier, father farmer means son was also doing farming only. Now it is not like that. They are looking forward to get out of their place and find something. So they are also contributing, and it is, I think Rupa has done work with Professor Leelavati. This backward bending supply curve phenomena is observed in rural areas. Yes.
Okay, sir. Ma'am. Thank you.
Sridev Roy. Where are you from, Sridev? Sridev? Number 34. Yeah, number 34. It is written as Sridev Roy. Can you speak?
Yeah, actually,
Yes,
he's
ma'am.
from
I'm from
Kerala.
Kerala.
Nah, yeah, I know, I got it. But I just want to give a suggestion to you. Kindly don't sleep on the sofa. Somebody is sleeping on the sofa. It is disturbing. It doesn't look nice. I saw your friend coming and going and peeping from the sofa, and it is not. I'm sorry to tell, but I'll have to tell. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, and then you can close the audio also if you don't want to see the presentation, or you can just no, not that. If you have some other things to be done there, you can close the audio and listen to the. You can close the video and listen. That's fine. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Next. I know talking about gender is very tough for me, and listening also very tough to you, but it is important. I consider that it is very important. Kempegowda was my student. He was, I think, very few of my students, boys who have taken gender economics. Kempegowda, you studied, no, gender economics? Yeah.
Madam, namaste, madam. I have a question, madam.
Yeah. Yeah, Chetan. Okay.
Madam, if you observe 2011 census, the sex ratio is 940 per 1,000 males. But at the same time, the child sex ratio is only 919. Compared to sex ratio, the child sex ratio is very less.
Yes.
That in future, also we will face problems related to gender issues.
Yeah. Child sex ratio is declining, I know. And also there are some studies about the implications of reducing child sex ratio. As such, it is already happening, and boys from Bihar come to Kerala and get one girl married and take her to Bihar. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know have anybody around, and the kind of trauma she faces. In so many places, it has been recorded about documentation was there about this decreasing female sex ratio. It is only like, supporting policies and, changing the mindset that should take place. Only time has to, like, as I told you, sensitive young men like you generation realize the importance, and also especially the working opportunities will increase. So it has to, there is nothing like this rule will bring this. We also have laws, what is called prenatal diagnosis. This thing is there, PNTDT Act is there, it is punishable, but still it is happening rampant. So it takes time for people to realize the importance of girl child. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hello, madam.
Yeah.
Now, what is the scope for gender budgeting in India, madam?
Yeah, certainly it is one of the important tools, gender budgeting, gender auditing. I am involved in gender audit. Next to gender budget is gender audit. Logical next step is gender audit. So gender budgeting is extremely important tool because it is not just government telling that we have to attain this, we have to attain that. It should also be backed with financial support. See, policies will translate into programs. So our policy is to bring about gender equity or gender parity. So to attain our policy is to bring about gender parity. So it has to be backed by allocations. Is it not? Just by slogans, nothing happened. I'll give one example of Sarashaksha Abhiyan. Sarashaksha Abhiyan, the objective is to attain universal elementary education. So that is a policy. At the policy level, we want to attain universal elementary education and increasing the gender parity. Then how? Then they found that girls' toilets are not there, lady teachers are not there, schools are too far. These are some of the factors which they found that which are coming in the way of girls coming into school. So then that has been addressed by Sarashaksha Abhiyan by giving allocation funds for construction of toilets and having schools and other things. So basically the budget is extremely important. Gender budgeting is a very important tool for attaining gender equality. Yes, but it has to be followed by gender audit. So that is where we are stuck. I am involved in this gender audit process with Fiscal Policy Institute. They are trying to institutionalize it because any program, government introduces any program, it starts with audit, it stops with audit. Program is done, implemented, audited, done. I mean, financial audit, but it is not actually gender audited. So now what we are trying to do is institutionalize gender audit also. Once the program is done, implemented, it is first budget, implementation, then audit. Kerala has done good work in gender audit. Some reports are there. So in Karnataka also, we are the first to make it gender audit of some of the programs, and then you will know whether the program is reaching men and women equally or not. And even among women also, women are not homogeneous. You can't say women are women. It's not that. Women are not homogeneous group at all. So there also you have different categories and groups and this one. So it is important. Gender audit will tell. So budget is to be followed by implementation, then audit, gender audit, financial audit and gender audit. Yeah. Good.
Madam,
Yeah.
good afternoon, madam. Really, it was
Hello,
a
ma'am.
wonderful.
Good.
Madam,
Yeah. Tell
am
me.
I audible? I am Balakrishnan from Kerala.
Yes.
The session was very much interesting, and I have one question that you mentioned mainstream economics cannot accommodate women issue, gender issue, not women issue, gender issue, because of the non-availability of sufficient access and freedom. So in a country like India, how can we, what kind of drastic policy change can be brought about to improve the freedom and access to resource?
No, there are two things here. One thing is I spoke theoretically about the where you can start thinking in that direction. See, first is theoretical contribution. There is a lot of scope for theoretical contribution. So theoretical contribution, our traditional economics, it assumes that man is rational human being. So that is the basic assumption. Basic assumption, man is rational. So which man? Man means it is only man and woman. Woman also? We don't know. And man is a rational human being, that never happens. And man has freedom to choose. So, but whether women is also included in that, women are also included in that, whether they have freedom or not. So when you are constructing a model, when you are estimating a demand equation, you should also look at estimate demand equation separately for men and women. Or with the existing demand equation only, you will have to modify to incorporate that. If we remove that assumption of freedom, what happens to demand when price decreases? So that you have to prove. So that is the theoretical, and also how markets fail. For example, labor market, as I told you, no. So the supply curve and demand curve we have. So supply curve and demand curve, those supply curve and demand curve have come into existence with the assumption that there is perfectly competitive market, people have knowledge and all those assumptions. But all those assumptions won't get fulfilled when you look at from gender perspective. Okay, freedom, for example, freedom. If you have freedom to buy what you want to buy, your demand increases. But if there is no freedom, your buying or not buying is not dependent on your decision. It is decision of somebody else. So it is a complicated thing. One needs a lot of thinking to understand how the existing models are to be modified to accommodate the gender differences also in whatever is the theory that is developed. That is one thing. And second thing, you are asking about the policies. Our policies are in right direction actually. See, policies also came about in the process of thinking. I think time is 1:15. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
1 o'clock only actually. We will discuss in the next session also. Next session, I won't pack up so much because it is next
Okay.
session we will discuss about. I will continue with the policy part in the next session. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, madam.
Because I think I'm supposed to stop at 1 o'clock, but it took some little bit more time.
Some discussions up to 15 minutes now, 1:59.
Yeah. We will spend more time in the afternoon on discussion because it is continuation of what I have spoken now.
Yes, ma'am.
Relating to sustainable development. That's all. Yeah. Anything else? Stella.
Okay, ma'am. We'll reassemble at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Fine. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.